So here again at the Europlanet Science Congress in Granada, Spain, I'm privileged to have as a short video guest. She's not short, but the video will be short. Frances Westall, who is a renowned astrobiologist at the Center for Molecular Biophysics, is it?
Yes, molecular biophysics, yes.
In Orléans, France. And let me just ask you what's a fascinating question. We talk about exobiology a lot, but let's talk about our own planet for a minute. We were just talking in the interview, and you told me that within 300 million, tell us what happened after our own planet formed 4.5 billion years ago, what, 4.56 or something like that?
Yes.
And you say that within 200 million years, there was liquid water on the surface, the magma had cooled, and life followed shortly after. Tell us about that.
Okay, well, it's all based on modeling because we've got no rocks left, of course. So what we think has happened is that the Earth cooled quite quickly after the moon forming impact, because it's not just the consolidation of the Earth. Then the moon, a planet of the size of Mars arrived and then collided with the Earth, and we had the magma ocean again, so everything had to cool down. But we have evidence of liquid water at about 4.2 billion years, and it's the only evidence that we have. But modeling shows that perhaps water could have appeared even earlier. And as far as I'm concerned, as soon as the water had cooled down to about 130 degrees or even lower, the reactions, the prebiotic reactions that led to life, they could have started and taken off. So life could have emerged somewhere between 4.3 and 4.2 billion years ago. And
you just gave a fascinating talk on life, primitive life. Now you see it, now you don't. How difficult it is to identify ancient life in microfossils. And the life you're talking about is a primitive life which did not use oxygen. And tell us about that.
Well, I'm really interested in the most primitive forms of life. As you said, these are forms of life. They don't use sunlight as a source of energy. They oxidize inorganic and organic substrates. They're the oldest, the most primitive forms of life that we know on Earth today, and they would be one of the earliest forms of life on Earth. And we think that these forms of life, because of their simplicity, are likely to have been, or at least I think these forms of life are likely to be the most common forms of life in the solar system, now or in the past, or elsewhere in the universe.
And so if it's this difficult, I mean, you mentioned that it's difficult to, definitively find life in ancient sediments and rock on Earth. And I ask you, how difficult will it be to identify such microfossils on Mars? And you said it's going to be difficult, right? I mean, very difficult.
It's going to be very difficult because, yes, I'm searching for the oldest traces of life on Earth. I think I have found the oldest cellular fossils, but my work is highly controversial.
And where were those found?
These fossils were found in rocks that are nearly 4.5 billion years old, 3.5 billion years old in the Pilbara in Australia. Now, we're using all kinds of types of analyses, even synchrotron analysis, to determine whether the features that I found are really microfossils from this age. And the first time I saw these fossils was in 2000, and we're now 2022, and I still have a PhD student who's working on the really top-end, difficult aspect of trying to identify other biosignatures associated with these cellular structures. So, and this is on Earth today. So when we get samples back from Mars, and hopefully they will contain traces of life, I suspect that it will be just as, perhaps not quite so arduous, because the idea of doing all this high-end work that we're doing now is to help or to know how to look for, search for traces of life in return samples from Mars.
And we kind of ended our interview prior to this video by your telling me that we are pretty much a fluke, but we're here largely due to two things. One, kind of a serendipitous demise of the dinosaurs due to volcanism on Earth, and this asteroidal impactor. When I wrote my book, people thought perhaps it was a comet, but now we think it's asteroidal, I think. Is that the paradigm?
Well, I think it's, I don't know, it's a combination of the two effects, asteroid impact and this huge Deccan volcanism, but it's that as well as the
plate tectonics.
Plate tectonics, because if you have what's called a one-plate planet, there's no recycling of nutrients, there's no recycling of the organic carbon, and so eventually everything will be used up on the surface, and that will be it.
So the next phase of anybody who's doing extrasolar planetary science should be to find a way to determine if extrasolar Earths have plate tectonics. I mean, that would go a long way.
That would be really, really interesting. Yes, I'd be very interested.
Well, anyway, thank you so much, Dr. Westall, for your time. Privileged to speak to you, and good luck with your future research.
Thank you very much.